Okay, so welcome to this evening's masterclass. Thank you for coming along. And this is really all about how you can supercharge your coaching results using NLP. And what we're going to do is be digging into some of the tools, looking at what NLP isn't, what it is, and how you can use it in coaching to elicit the best and most intentional results from your clients. So, with no further ado, this is what we're going to be looking at this evening. So I'll just do a little intro in a moment and we'll run through what NLP actually is and a couple of the definitions, what it is definitely not. Then we'll look at the areas where NLP really can affect your coaching and amplify your coaching results. We'll move into the usual suspects, which are the key foundational skills of NLP. And then I'm going to talk to you and teach you the communication model, which is really how we make sense of the world and how your clients make sense of the world. Then we'll move on to a transformational change model, NLP change model, which is this is absolutely a game changer. And if you've never seen it before, you've got something to look forward to there. And then I will tell you a little bit about training opportunities and next steps. And then we will have a Q&A where I can answer all of your questions and queries along the way. So for any of you who don't know me, I'm Teresa Brooks and I'm an NLP trainer, NLP master practitioner, transformational coach and sales communication mentor. I'm very passionate about mental health as well, and I'm also trauma informed. I'm a silent counsellor, which is really an energy-based, very natural, holistic process. And I'm also, originally, I was trained as a holistic therapy. So I'm all about bringing all the parts of a person into one place for the best change possible. I'm an award-winning businesswoman and founder of Coach Magazine, podcast, and Coach Connect networking membership. So what is NLP? Now, there's lots and lots of different ways of describing this. But basically, NLP, as you probably know, stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And it's been around since the 1970s when its co-founders, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, first modelled the therapists Milton Erickson, Gregory Bateson, Fritz Perls, and Virginia Satir. And there's two really key words in there. The first one is modelled, and the second one is therapists. So one of the big parts of NLP is all about modeling. So this is about really finding the genius in people and looking at how they get the results they get. You know, what is it? What are the codes that make that happen? So we do a lot of modeling, especially in master practitioner level. And the second word there that I wanted to just pull out for you was therapists. So NLP has its feet firmly in therapy, and that makes it a very interesting art, really, but it doesn't make it therapy itself. Now, there's two quotes there from the co-creators. Richard Bandler said, NLP is an attitude, which is an insatiable curiosity about human beings with a methodology that leaves behind it a trail of techniques. So the one thing about NLP is it is really about that value of curiosity. What's going on? Okay, and what does it mean to the client? So that's really what you do. If you take nothing else, just remember it's an insatiable curiosity. And John Grinder, his partner at the time, said the strategies, tools and techniques of NLP represent an opportunity, unlike any other, for the exploration of human functioning, or more precisely, the rare and valuable subset of human functioning known as genius, which is what I mentioned before. So this is what we're actually looking to elicit from others when we do modeling processes, is the genius. And then how can we bring that into who we are so that we can get the same or similar results? So breaking just down those three words, neuro is the study of the mind and the nervous system. And it's how we take in information and how we process it. It's how we think. Linguistic, of course, is the study of language and the non-verbal communication, very much the non-verbal, and how we use it to give meaning to our own thoughts and experiences. And the programming is how we turn the internal and external information into patterns or programs and then into our behaviours, which of course then dictate our outcomes and results. So it's always a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? It never sounds particularly attractive, neuro-linguistic programming. They really didn't make it sexy, but that is what it actually means. And so it's the study of the structure of subjective experience. So it's not the study of experience, how we experience the world, it's the study of the structure of that. because obviously everybody has a very different experience. Experience is subjective in itself. So the ANLP definition, of which I'm a trainer member, says this, and I thought this was great. The NLP combines theories, models, and techniques from a range of scientific and esoteric fields to create accessible, understandable tools which can be used by individuals, teams, and organizations and applied in a variety of contexts to improve outcomes, support well-being, and create change. So basically, NLP empowers across all areas of our life and business. There isn't really an area where you would say, oh no, NLP is no good over there. It's absolutely, it's universal. And it is, like the previous slide said, it's an attitude. It's the way of being. And simply put, change is always possible. You know, this is one of the presuppositions that we come from. It says possible in the world and possible for me is only a matter of how. And the NLP presuppositions are a set of principles. There's 16 of them, and they're kind of like our rules, if you like. They're assumed truths, and that is one of them. So all you need is a desire to change, a willingness to learn new ways with yourself, your thoughts, and with others. So what it's not, we know what it is now. We've looked at what it actually is, but what it's not is therapy. So as I mentioned, NLP's got its its roots firmly in therapy. The therapists that were modelled, Virginia Satir was one of the world-renowned family therapists. And the approach that they took was really to take, the thing with therapy is that it's long, it can be long, extensive. And so NLP took areas and modelled on these areas of excellence and created new tools and strategies to make things faster. But it is not therapy. And so when we use processes like timeline therapy, parts integration, it is always and often with a content-free or metaphorical approach. So we're not getting into past experiences. In fact, we're not getting into any experiences if you don't want to with NLP. And that's the beautiful thing about it. So there's a content-free approach, and it's not therapy. It's not counselling either. It's not lots of endless talking and ruminating and seeing what's going on. It's not, and it's not a mental health solution, although it can have really positive and powerful impacts on mental health. It's not a solution for that, and it's not a replacement for medication or magically changing what you might need physically, which has been prescribed for you. So the popular myth. Now let's talk about these, okay? These four here. I mean, these four on their own are whole conversations. Now, I'm really passionate about ethics in coaching and in NLP. But what always amuses me is that when I read posts and I see people talk about NLP in a negative way, saying that it's, you know, manipulative and it's control and it's coercive and it's bad and you shouldn't use it and all of this stuff, it does make me chuckle a little bit inside, because that in itself is NLP in action, okay? The very way that they are processing NLP or thinking about it, they're putting it through a bunch of filters of their own and making it mean that, which will be based on probably other people's experiences, possibly negative experiences. So let's have a look at it. It's mind control. It's mind control. Well, it's not possible to control someone's mind, and I think we all know that. However, it may look like you can sometimes. It may look like that is happening. Now, the reason that people might say it's mind control is because when you understand the tools of NLP and you practice them and you become very, very masterful with them, there's some really powerful kit in there about understanding human psychology, language, how people think. We have a model in Master Practitioner called sleight of mouth, which is, you know, comes from sleight of hand, which of course is magic. And really, when somebody can understand all of that and they can use that with less than positive intention, then it is possible to lead somebody to where you want them to go. Now, I just do have to say that you would have to be incredibly skilled to do this as well. That's a high level of knowledge and practice and learning, plus not a good intention, your own intention. And intention is everything in NLP. So really, it's the person. Okay, so it's not mind control. That can't happen, but you are able to lead people, but you lead your clients to their intention, not your intention. Okay, so it does get quite complex, that, but there's ways that are explained and taught in the language models which can allow that to happen. So when someone is not using that ethically, that's where that comes from. It's manipulative. So that's the same thing, because that is manipulative. Because if you're listening to someone's language and you're able to really understand what's going on that deep level and use NLP unethically to meet your intention or your goals, or to make them buy your program or whatever it's going to do, then of course it is going to be manipulative, and it's going to feel manipulative. And then there's another point about manipulative as well, which is to do with rapport and connection. And we'll get onto that a little bit further. So this is all about how you use the tools. This is not about the tools themselves. So for instance, a dangerous person with an intention to kill and a chainsaw is a really bad combination. But a chainsaw on its own is a really powerful and useful tool for the right intention. You put the two together, though, and you've got a problem. So that's what can really happen with the mind control, manipulation, unethical things that people are saying. The other thing people like to say is it's a cult. So the definition of a cult is a group led by a charismatic, self-appointed leader who requires unwavering devotion to a set of beliefs or practices. So, I mean, you can believe me that neither Richard Bandler nor John Grinder are charismatic particularly, and certainly there's not one of them. There was a group of them, there was co-creators, and they don't dictate anything. I mean, we are flag bearers for NLP, so we follow the principles and the codes of NLP, but we always want to evolve things and make it better as well. And certainly there's no dictatorship, there's no financial control, there's no manipulation to their better end or outcomes, and there's no codependence or dependency on that leader. So I would say very clearly it's not a cult. So let's just talk about ethics for a moment, because we've touched on what can be unethical, or people that can be unethical. The tools themselves are neither here nor there. They're not able to do anything by themselves. It's like a pen. The pen is just a pen. You can't do anything unless I pick it up and use it. So ethics is all about best practice of the tools, do no harm, and also following. We have a code of ethics. As members of a professional body, we follow codes of ethics. And integrity is super important, and integrity and intention. So integrity is really what you think, what you say, and what you do, all lining up to maintain integrity, and always with best positive intention for your client, and following a code of ethics. Now, ecology is interesting, and it's a big word in NLP, because this is about the consequences. Are there any consequences to the change processes that you are going to be using? So, for instance, sometimes you can change a behavior, you can change a belief, but really what we say is not to work with really core identity beliefs with some of the belief change models, and also to check if there's secondary gain, anything like that going on. You could change somebody's food or eating habit or something like that, and it will pop up somewhere else. So the ecology really is about, again, it's like your client comes first. Are there any negative consequences from doing this change process? How would anybody else be impacted? So it's the ecology of self and of others, and making sure. There's lots of times that I have not done a process because a thorough ecology check kind of says to me, actually, this is not the right process for this limiting belief or for this person. And so sometimes that can take quite a lot of testing and poking around. So we're not just doing processes or just change work like that. So that's the ecology. Accreditations are super important, and if you went onto Udemy, you'd see lots and lots of NLP courses that are apparently accredited. Now, who they're accredited by, and who monitored them and who assessed them, etc., how's the whole thing built out? You'll often find that people can easily set up their own accreditation companies, because that's basically all it is. Appoint a couple of people, create a certificate, and call it accredited. Okay, it's a bit of a horrendous situation, to be honest, but there are accredited bodies. So we've got the American Board of NLP, and we've got the ANLP, of which I am a registered member. There's a couple more there as well. So you really want to be looking for these associations to do any accreditation and CPD with. Why does it matter? Because it's not regulated, there's no support. So you've taken an online NLP course, for instance, and you're just putting it through your own filters. You're bringing it into your own awareness. And of course, when we get to the communication model a little bit later on, this will make even more sense to you because you're absorbing it from your map of the world, but you've got nobody else to give you any feedback. You've got no challenge, you've got no feedback, you've got no regulation of that. And so you wouldn't really know what you were doing. Are you getting the ecology checks right? You know, have you got the processes right? Which steps have you missed? Because a lot of the processes are quite simple, but also very, very powerful. What do you do if something goes wrong? What do you do if somebody has a trauma event or something is triggered? What do you do? So just learning on a course on a screen, you're not going to be able to know what to do. And so, you know, feedback is everything, absolutely everything in NLP. Another presupposition, there is no failure, only feedback. So we're actually looking to practice a lot and learn on accredited courses so that we can get that feedback so that we can make it better again. So it does really, really matter in so many ways. Okay, so let's move into how NLP supports gold standard coaching. And I really believe that it does, because without NLP in coaching, you are following coaching models with some very light touch on things like, you know, values, rapport, beliefs, really not deep at all. And so what exactly is going on? How much information are you missing? So the first thing here that I want to talk about is one of the key NLP presuppositions, and that is respect for the other person's map of the world. We work with maps of the world in NLP. How is your client seeing something? How have they created this map of their world, which could be very, very different to your map of the world? So in order to create this change effectively in your clients, you do not have to believe what they believe, because it's only our truths that are true. It's true to me, it might not be true to you. So you don't have to believe that. You've got a boundary and you're looking to understand. So it's not your responsibility to change a client's model of the world or attempt to convince them of yours. This can happen a lot in the name of coaching, where people have got systems and processes and they want to actually other people to follow it. Now, you can see that there can be, based on what you've learned so far, there can be an ecology conflict there as well. And this is why often a lot of programs are not right for a lot of people, for mass people. And you hear such mixed reviews. So coaching and pure coaching, of course, is most transformational, one-to-one, where you are literally working with one person and their map of the world. So when you can respect that, you can work from it and effect change powerfully, rapidly, and easily as well. Like, we don't want our coaching to be so hard. We don't want our clients to be gurning and struggling. We want to be able to pick up lots of information so that we can offer for them change. And when we work with the foundation of their values and belief system, that's exactly what we can do. I'm going to keep doing that slide, isn't it? Okay, so benefits, really: enhanced and advanced communication. So if you're a coach, NLP will help you to better understand your client's communication styles. So often we're kind of using our coaching tools and we're thinking about ways forward and we're using the GROW model, etc. But how much attention are you paying to communication styles? And how do you even know what communication styles are? Are you able to notice their preferences and their patterns? Because this is what NLP will help you to do. But it will also help you to improve your active listening, really active listening, because that might be like, oh yeah, I know active listening. But really, it's about responding effectively, asking the right questions, because that's what coaching is about. And providing coaching that's intentional. That's always the big word that you will come out with at the end of the evening, and in alignment with the client's values and beliefs. Okay. So by learning skills, calibration being one of them, and using NLP techniques for rapport, such as mirroring, pacing, and leading, you might have heard of those, or if you're trained, you will know those. You can build this rapport with your clients and have a deeper and genuine level of trust and connection, which, when you build a relationship that fosters trust, facilitating behavioral change is so much easier. So you can help your clients to facilitate change by helping them identify and modify their limiting beliefs, okay, and help them to lead values-led businesses and lives. So reframing, anchoring, visualization will help clients to shift mindset and shed limiting beliefs and adopt new beliefs that are more aligned with their goals and values. NLP can also be used to help clients overcome fears and phobias. And these are some of the things that people think are like magic, but the fast phobia cure is pretty something else. It really is something else. And so that can be really, really useful, because they'll have fears like that, or phobias and emotional barriers that will hold them back. So NLP gives you the tools to be able to facilitate this change. Personal development, I mean, anyone that's done any kind of NLP work will realize how powerful it is for your own personal development, never mind before you get to your client. Because when you can understand how you operate and what your patterns are and what your programs are, what your values and beliefs are, then that helps you to really go a lot deeper with your client. So you can only really take your client as deep as you have gone. So the personal development side of NLP is just so powerful, and you can help them develop their strengths and talents as well. Now, some of the models that we use will help the clients obviously to create their external realities. We'll create our external reality, but if we don't like it, we're going to have to go inwards, right, and explore the inner world to get new insights, new realities, heal past pain. Remember, as I said, ethically and content-free. So we're not going into trauma and difficult situations, but you can work with that really very easily with NLP. The tools will allow that. So it helps the clients to overcome all these things and also get a sense of purpose and meaning in their life. And that in itself will increase their motivation and drive to succeed. So that's just really an overview of some of the areas of your coaching that can really be impacted and amplified by NLP. And now what I'm going to take you through is some training, some NLP training around 3 areas that are super, super important. These are the foundational parts of NLP. And these are the ones that you would learn deeply on any program. Now, I don't know, I'm going to assume that you're old enough to remember this movie. And it was a great movie called The Usual Suspects, of course. But we don't have these guys involved in tonight, really. It's just to sort of bring up the fact that John Grinder said, make sure the usual suspects are in place. Now, what are the usual suspects? The usual suspects are the tools that we need. The first one is calibration. Now, we refer to calibration as the mother of all skill sets. And calibration simply means to notice change, but it's not a simple skill at all. It's quite the art. In fact, I would say it is a superpower. And calibration always comes before rapport. So calibration is about being aware of shifts and changes in another, but not assuming what it means. So you're always looking to calibrate your client, calibrate yourself as well, but calibrate your client to see what's happening with the client. We spend a lot of time focused on language. We're listening really closely to what they're saying. And of course, you're going to notice major shifts. Like if someone's like, oh, I just can't do this, you're going to calibrate that automatically. And a lot of other things. Sometimes you might sense something with your clients, but you don't quite know what's going on. And that's because the calibration skills really do with honing and tuning. And that's what you're learning NLP. So this is about how the client's transmitting information to you. So sometimes they might be saying that they agree with something or they're saying the right things, but it's actually then they don't seem aligned with it in some way. But because you may not be confident enough to inquire and ask and have that acute curiosity or confidence, this is the reason to be learning good calibration. This is all about their physiology, very, very much physiology, and tonality and language. Language just unpacks how we are processing everything. So you're calibrating the whole person. This brings a whole new meaning, okay, to creating a relationship with the client. It brings a whole new meaning to active listening. Because also in calibration, you're going to be able to look not only at what their body does, what their energy's like, their breathing's like, their tonality, but you're also going to be looking and learning about their eyes, eye accessing cues. So this eye accessing cues will give you the indication to what representational system they're using internally, okay, which then in turn will help you to build great rapport by mirroring that same language, that same rep system, and talking to them about whatever it is you're talking about, but you start to speak in their language. Okay, so if you've ever felt like, you know, any difficulty with a client, it's like, oh, they're not really getting it, or we just don't seem to be gelling, and you hear this sometimes, it's all back to calibration. So this is all about clues, okay? This is all about clues, and you are really a detective when you are an NLP coach. So the ability to pick them up, because clients give them out all the time, they're scattering clues all the time, but the ability to pick them up as a coach, as an NLP coach, is what could lead you to the next revelation. So coaching is all about unearthing information and knowing where's the next question, where's the next step, and that would always be client-led. Okay, so calibration is about a great awareness of self as well, calibrating yourself, and also your own emotional triggers. You know, what's going on with you that could actually, you know, cause a ripple in this relationship. So hence, again, back to the ethical practice, you know, doing no harm. You're always being aware of the situations, of the context of the situations, and of yourself. And again, always intentional about what you are doing, intentional. Why are you calibrating? And why are you noticing so much? Not because you want to take them on your own journey so that you can use all those tools and skills to manipulate, but so that this is going to be aligned with your client's intention and your client's goals. And you're going to notice the problems along the way, the things that come up, and you're going to never, ever assume any meaning to it. Because often we say, oh yeah, and she looked like that, and I knew she wasn't very happy. Well, how did you know that? How did you know that? So you don't want to be calibrating and assuming. That's a really bad recipe. So calibration is the mother of all skill sets. The next one is rapport. And I say the next one because a lot of people think that rapport comes first, that build the rapport, but it doesn't, because there's no rapport without calibration. So rapport is the connection superpower. But if you don't calibrate well before you build your rapport, you're going to be doing that kind of cheesy old-fashioned rapport that people used to do in the 80s, where it just used to feel really uncomfortable. And this is what can come in sometimes with, you know, with sales. I mean, I do a lot of work in the area of sales and communication. And this is the part where you get that kind of like cheesy, smiley person that's trying to, you know, chat you up to buy something, or it just feels so uncomfortable. That's because somebody may believe they've got rapport building skills and they can be really friendly and welcoming and all of that, but they're doing everything from their map of the world. They haven't calibrated you properly before they start building the rapport and kind of using their rapport skills. So it just doesn't work. So rapport is the connection superpower. And, you know, what a beautiful thing, really, to be able to build connection to that depth with another human being. So it's really a process of responsiveness. Okay, you're responding to what you've calibrated, what you've noticed. It's on conscious and unconscious levels as well. It's pretty deep. But don't ever think, oh yeah, well, I know all about rapport. You know, I'm a really good rapport builder, because I would have said that as well about myself. And what I learned through NLP was just another level, and this is how you facilitate great change with your clients, when you can calibrate them and build rapport. And don't think it means that you need to get on with them all the time and everything's got to be wonderful and great. If you have rapport with somebody, okay, you can lead them anywhere. They will go anywhere with you, and you can even be in an argument with somebody and still be in great rapport. Why? Because you're in the same state. It's when you get broken states of rapport that it just kind of falls out, and you're like, oh, everything was going well, and then it just went a bit wrong. In coaching sessions, sometimes things can go a bit wrong. You know, they just do. We're human. So you stop, you recalibrate, you go again, you rebuild that rapport. It can happen in seconds. What you don't want is extended broken rapport, or a rapport that's just not building because the calibration and connection skills are not good enough. So rapport is mainly about matching and mirroring, and you may have heard of those. And then it's about pacing as well. So that, again, is very, 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 very intentional. That has to have the positive intention to build the rapport so that you can help them get to where they want to. Otherwise, that will feel like manipulation. It will feel, and you'll feel it. You'll kind of feel like you're being manipulated. You're not quite sure how. I think might seem okay on the surface. It's because the intention will probably be off. So rapport is about finding connection points. It's about behavioural flexibility. One thing note on rapport is to really avoid too much rapport if a client is in a negative state, because it will alter your state as well. And so you really need to think about the discernment of when you're building rapport. You don't want to be building rapport in a negative way between you, because that's only going to go downhill. So the relationship is where great coaching happens, and relationships are built on connection and harmony. Connection and harmony will bring you trust, and trust means that not only between you as a coach and your client, but also helping them to start trusting themselves. When they trust themselves to open up, revelations will appear. So rapport is absolutely, it's huge. It is the superpower. I keep doing that so annoying. Sorry. This is interesting. Resistance. Have any of you ever experienced a resistant client? Like they just seem to be not up for anything and nothing's right, and they could just feel the resistance. But what we say in NLP is there are no resistant clients, only inflexible communicators. That's interesting, as you're the communicator. So it's not mapping on that meaning that the clients are resistant, but it's like, well, how am I communicating? Again, back to the calibration and the rapport. So the resistance is only a sign of the lack of rapport. So it's for us to go deeper, to be correcting that, to learning more, and communicate better, to improve and deepen that rapport, to remove the resistance, okay? Because it's really, that is the way to remove resistance. It can turn into a battle sometimes, and this is why. So I'm sure you've seen that before. It's just a little reminder as we talk about rapport that it's all in the physiology as well. So someone can be speaking perfectly normally, and then a question is asked or something, and then you might get like a really uncomfortable shift, or it could just be minuscule, or it could just be their breathing, it could be the color in their face, it could be the way that they just move their head slightly. I mean, I drive my mum crazy. She's like, do you have to notice every single thing that I do? Do you have to pick up on that, everything in my tone? And I'm like, yes, because you're communicating to me, so I'm just picking it up. But here it just reminds you that the language is so little. So when you're working with your clients, you really want to start developing these skills, because that's where the power really lies. So the third usual suspect is state. I call this the emotional shapeshifter, because the state is like how we are in any given moment, and also how the client is in any given moment. You've heard people say, oh, you know, God, they're in such a state. And so we can have good states, and we can have negative states, empowered states, disempowered states. NLP is hugely about state, and you're in charge of your state as a coach. And you don't want to be bringing any of your stuff, anything unresourceful states, into the coaching experience. So state management in NLP is huge, because there's often a lot going on in our lives, right? There's really difficult stuff. Sometimes difficult things can happen right before a coaching session. What are you going to do? You need to be able to change your state. So using the tools of NLP and a lot of the processes, you can do that instantly. You can change that state. You can make that choice. A lot of people don't believe that. They're like, no, but after what's happened, how can I possibly? I have clients that talk about it all the time. They're like, oh, and I couldn't do it. You know, I can't do this when this has happened, and now the day's wiped out. I'm like, we need to do some state work. Okay, so it's emotional management, and helping your clients to manage their state as well, their state of mind, their physiology, and giving them a lot of, we do a lot of unconscious work, a lot of somatic work, a lot of physiology in NLP. More than people realize, your physiology shifts emotion really quickly. So you have to know how to shake everything off, basically, and help your clients to do the same. And this is the big one of usual suspects, intention. Intention is everything. So if anything ever goes skew, you just go back to intention. In your coaching, in NLP, in anything in life, okay? When things start getting complex and difficult, what's your intention? What was your intention? Because often we can lose our way, especially when you get a lot of content, a lot of detail, a lot of story. you can really lose your way. So intention is absolutely everything. And what is your intention ultimately? And what's the intention of the intention? Intention is really different to goals. Okay, so when a client's got a goal, that's something they want to get, that's something they want to achieve. Whereas intention tends to be a much higher value. Okay, and it takes them beyond that. So we want to use intention to zoom out of the detail when things can get a little bit complex. But really, what sits around this is, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? And how is it helping the client? Okay, and where's it leading to? And how does it fit in? Is it relevant? So what you're doing in your coaching sessions, all working to intention. So you need awareness for this to know when intention might have shifted, and you want to be able to be aware of this and know what the purpose is of everything. And Timothy Galway, who wrote The Inner Game of Tennis, he's got a little process called stop. Stop. S is for step back. T is for take a breath. O is for organize your thoughts. And then P is for press on. And really, if you get lost in any coaching sessions at all, you just want to use that, just stop. This can take like moments. You just stop, take a breath, reorganize your thoughts, which often means reconnecting to the intention. What's the intention here? And that reconnection can even sound like with your client, okay, just remind me of your intention here. Because when clients are going down the rabbit holes and all kinds of things are happening, it's getting very, very complex. Zoom out. Okay, let's take a moment. What's your intention? That literally brings them back to front and center focus. I don't know, what's my intention? You often find that we say that to ourselves. I don't know what I was intending. Or we say, well, I wasn't intending that. So if you have any conflict in your life and there's a problem, and then you say, well, it wasn't my intention. That wasn't my intention for you to feel like that or to upset you. It's like something's gone wrong with communication along the way. Often people don't set their intention before they go into communication. So this is a really another big area. Okay, so those are your usual suspects there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now talk to you about the communication model and how we know what we know. And so this works for us, this works for our clients, and it is absolutely at the core of NLP. And if you knew nothing else about NLP, the communication model is the one, because this is how we process everything. So a lot of you may have seen similar types of images to this. This is my creation of such. And if you just take a look at that for the moment, everything that we experience is an external event. Now, in NLP, we also say that it's a neutral event. It's not a good event. It's not a bad event. We don't map any meaning on it. It's just an event. It's a situation. It's a context. And it just happens outside of our awareness here, outside of our control. Okay. So considering there's 2 million pieces of information, probably like per second, hitting our brains, we would explode if we try to absorb all of that. So it has to start going through our filters, our internal filters. And those are delete, distort, and generalize. Those are the 3 key filters. So when information comes in at us, this is why some people say, well, I didn't hear that. What did they say that? I don't remember that, because they've deleted it from their filter. And so often you get, and you're like, how can you not remember that? How can you not know that? You know, if that's ever happened to you. So these filters are running all the time. They're totally unconscious, but deletions will be things that we consider not important. We won't even consider them not important. They're just, this is all done in, well, I couldn't even say at the speed, not important. The distortion is when we give meaning to things. Okay, so we distort things to make them fit the rest of these here. So the distortion is really about making it mean something. So, for instance, if there's a table there and I say, oh, that's such a beautiful table. And you're like, that is an ugly table. That is one ugly table. I'm not putting my lamp up. That is disgusting. I would never buy that. The table is just a table. It's just a table. And everything that you view and everything that you see, you've mapped meaning onto that. Okay, so it's been distorted and you've made a meaning. Generalizations, we love to generalize, okay, especially when we're fulfilling our own story in our heads, because we say, oh yeah, well, everybody thinks that. Nobody does that. It's always like that. Okay, so there's these mass generalizations that speak for the entire globe based on our filters. Okay, so when you consider that those are going on as well, so that's the first things is DDG, delete, distort, generalize. And all of this is also filtered through everything else through this next set here, our values. What's important to us? What's important? Okay, because we're going to filter stuff depending on what's important. We're going to decide that's important, that's not. And again, it's all unconscious. Some of it will be conscious, of course, when you're thinking things through, but a lot of the time it's not. And then, of course, your beliefs as well. What do you believe? What do you believe? And where did that come from? What are your experiences? Okay, and what are your programs? What are your meta programs? It's like how you run inside. That's another big area in NLP. It's your meta programs. And so there's a lot of things in that column that we wouldn't have time to dig into today. But this is how people then create a map of the world. So they'll create a view of something, okay, and how they see it, okay, which is basically their internal representation. Or the map of the world, whatever we like to call it, the map of the world, but it is your internal representation. So this now means this, okay? And so then that determines how you feel about it, how you feel about it. And how you feel about it then determines your state about it. And then your state is your physiology. And all of those things together affect your behavior, okay? How you're going to behave depends on how you feel about it, right? And that affects your results. So if you don't like the results, or you don't like the reality, or you don't like what's happening in your life and you want things to be different, you have to go back through the model. Okay, so if you want to change your results, you've got to go back to change your state. If you want to change your state, you need to change how you feel. You want to change your physiology, you need to change your state, how you feel. And if you want to change how you feel, you need to go back into your values, your beliefs, your experiences, your programming, and find out where you're deleting, distorting, and generalizing, okay, that is causing you to see things in a certain way and feel a certain way, behave a certain way, and get certain results. So this is why people don't get the same results. Otherwise, we'd all just be little robots, wouldn't we? So it's a really, really powerful model, because then if your clients are having problems and they don't like their results, or their behavior is not getting that lots of clients will say, well, I can't do it, or I've tried and I can't do it, which is a limiting belief in itself. So you'd be going back into beliefs. I can't do this. I don't believe I can do this. So is it the way that they're looking at their problems? Okay, that is the problem. Because the map of the world, everyone's responding to this model here, not the external event. And this explains why people will have exactly the same experience out externally, and you have a completely different meaning on it. Some things are highly distressing for some people. Other people are like, well, doesn't bother me. And different people have different meanings. Okay, and this is why people debate things, but it's all there. So as a coach, understanding the communication model is super, super important, because you need to understand their map of the world, where they're coming from. And also, remember the slide before, it's not for you to change their map of the world, and it's certainly not for you to think, well, I don't think like that, and I think I know better, and I know because I've got all this experience, so I'm going to guide you and tell you what to do based on my map of the world. Now, if you and your client have very similar maps of the world, that could go okay. It could go okay. However, the chances are that you're going to hit a part where it's not. And that can be when the coaching starts to take a little bit of a dip or change, or you might get stuck. So it's always about going back to the intention and understanding, how is my client seeing this, and based on what? You know, how do they feel about this? We do what we feel like doing, don't we? I mean, we actually say, yeah, I just really fancy doing it. I really felt like that. I could really feel it. I felt this was the right thing. When we feel it's the right thing, our state of physiology are all aligned, and we're going to take the action. But when we're not feeling it, and it's just like, oh, I just didn't feel like, and the physiology will go like, I just didn't feel like it. It's all in the face, it's in the body. I don't feel like it. So if someone's not feeling it and you're telling them, yes, but you've got to like, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to follow, and this is the action you need to take to get the results that you want. And they're like, you need to really look very closely at their map of the world and what's going on and what's happening inside. And that's what NLP teaches you to do by understanding and working always with a communication model. And there's a whole model on language, of course, in NLP, because language reveals processing, how people are processing. So when you can really understand language, you can understand a lot more about how they're processing things. And language is not just the words, as we've said. So this is so important because so many coaches will prescribe before they have diagnosed. So the chronology is wrong. And so that's why there's a lot of things, we're told to develop these models and develop your methods and develop your systems. You can do that, but you have to have the right culture. You have to have the right client. The culture of the client has to be right for your program. Okay, so it's quite a deep piece of work. But it's a little bit like if you went to the doctor and he said, oh, hello, yeah, take these tablets. Anyway, what's wrong? It's like, it's the wrong way around. And so that happens a lot in coaching, though. We're like, oh, hi, yeah, I've got my system and I know my coach and I'm going to use my tools. And then it doesn't really kind of work. Now, the client might say, this is what I want. And you think, oh, that's a great match. But NLP coaching and deep structured coaching is exactly that. It's deep structure and it's all about understanding client's map of the world and the culture of the client. So you want to discover your client's model of the world every single time. And as values and beliefs shift and change, their model of the world could always be changing. They might say, oh, I don't think that now. I've changed my mind now. And you're like, what? Last week, this is what you said. So you're always calibrating. You're always maintaining those calibration skills so that you can hear, you can use your sensory acuity, you can understand, and you can deepen these skills so that you can really discover how they're thinking, what that means, and then you can start the change work, and only then. So this is really what I call a people-first approach, creating a natural connection with your client. So coaching is about questions, and as coaches we have lots of questions. We're very sort of nosy, and we're like the FBI of coaching. We want to know why this and why and why and why, but this can get repetitive, and sometimes, especially with the why questions, it can be a little intrusive. And it can develop some resistance there. So you really want to be eliciting rich information all the time. And the way to do that is to develop your own skills so that you can have advanced skills to help invite these revelations and unearth hidden information. Because sometimes when you become very skilled at your craft, you can offer what you're noticing and you can offer. And they will be like, wow. Okay, so this is what you're looking for, and then that will make them reveal something else and think of something else. So in conversational NLP as well, it's like you don't want to feel like your clients think you're doing some NLP to them, doing it to me, getting NLP'd. I mean, that just feels awful, doesn't it? So conversational NLP and conversational change, that's a big part of what we do in NLP. People, apart from when you're doing particular processes, a lot of the work can be done by developing these skills so that it's all in conversation. Now, have you ever had that great coaching session where you just think, I don't really know what happened, but I just, yeah, I feel great and I feel, aligned, and, because I certainly have, and I've certainly had clients with that, and it's just wonderful. So if you want to understand their values, don't ask them, what are your values? Ask them about the highlights of their life. Ask them about the highlights of their career, the good times, the good points, the positives, the wins, and just let them speak. Let it pour out, because in there you will find their values. And when I first take a personal history session with somebody, I'm just listening. It's so easy. I'm listening and I'm using all my skills with full presence, okay, with the intention to understand my client's map of the world. And so the values start pouring out and I can just write them down. And then, of course, that makes my language and my response system much, much stronger, because I can talk to them about the value of fairness. They're like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that is building already, but I haven't said, oh, what are your values? we do very specific values elicitation processes, but there are other ways to do it as well, because clients often don't come with a list of values. And so the elicitation process is really deep and really beautiful, but that's a really conversational way to do it. You want to unearth their beliefs, know what they believe and what's limiting them, ask them about their challenges, ask them about their difficult times, because the limiting beliefs and the difficult things, they'll just pour out as well. And just make a note of all of those. So you want to understand the culture of the client, sort of, who they are, okay? Because where they are and who they are is where to work for transformational change, okay? Not strategy. Strategy does not transform, okay? So you need to know your clients so well so that you can then tailor a strategy to support the culture of the client. Okay, and this is why a lot of strategy only programs don't work or leave people really disappointed, because they're like, oh, and they said it didn't work for me. And the person was like, it was amazing for me. How come? Different maps of the world, different cultures. Okay, so in terms of how I want to train and how I teach, I am looking for the cultures of people that are going to come on my programs. Are they all the right culture for me for them, for the way that they fit? And that's the ethical practice, not just about getting numbers on your programs. So you're always calibrating the whole time. This is the biggest thing, because if you miss change and you miss some of these values and you miss some of these beliefs, it can be quite difficult, or it just remains very surface. Okay, so you don't get the deep structure. So remember, culture changes behavior, not strategy. So where does your client actually need the change on these levels? So we talked a little bit about when you get stuck as a coach, but why they're not getting the results, what's going on? And you're working so hard. And I don't know if you've ever had clients that just get stuck, or you just feel a bit stuck as a coach. Why is this happening? Where can you take them next? So this last model that I'm going to teach you tonight before we have our Q&A, is really about the levels, and it's the neurological levels of change. This is a model by Robert Dilts, who was one of the co-creators with Richard Bandler and John Grinder for NLP. And this isn't strictly an NLP process, but it is a diagnostic tool which provides a huge amount of coaching material, okay? So it really is a wonderful process to do. If you get taken through this, and I did this on my latest retreat, and also I do it in with private clients as well. It's 6 levels of change. It changed about probably, I don't know, I've seen this take half a day before. It's a big model, but you can spend a good couple of hours on it. It's beautiful. But really, it's about the 6 levels of human experience, okay? And you want to know where you're going to go to really get that transformational change for your client. So you'll notice that there's 6 levels here, and it's like, where am I doing this? What am I doing? How am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Who am I to do this? And who else does this impact? And so it's a powerful model for change, and it was actually based on the work of the anthropologist Gregory Bates. And you notice at the beginning, he was one of the people that was modelled on. And this really will help you to get alignment for your clients, because we talk about alignment a lot, but really I just think it's a word that is sometimes just trotted out, alignment. We need to be in alignment. But, as a coach, do you really know how to get someone into alignment? Where in these levels, where do they need aligning? Where do they need aligning? So this enables you to kind of walk your talk as well. And also you can put yourself through this model as well, which is amazing. And like I say, elicits a lot of information. So you'll notice the bottom 3 levels, environment, behavior, and capability. So the change at the bottom 3 levels is what's known as small C coaching. Robert Dilts said small C coaching. So basically it's very external, it's very tangible, it's transactional, it's strategy, basically. It's like the how to do it. It's very, very practical. And change in these 3 areas won't affect change on the top levels, on the top 3 levels. But the other way around, of course, the top 3 levels, beliefs, values, identity, and mission, That's what we call big C coaching. That's transformational coaching. Whereas lower down levels, transactional coaching. So this is how the triangle works. And this is why mission and purpose is so important. And we talk about that as a lot as a coach, because if your clients don't know their purpose and their mission and what they're doing, they're going to really struggle with the behavior change that requires them to do what they need to do to achieve their mission. So they're like, oh, I don't really know. I thought I had a mission, but they're not prepared to do what it takes to achieve their mission. The misalignment is at the top. Okay. So, for instance, if there was a behavioural issue, take yourself into an office for the moment. And we've all worked in an office, and I imagine, I'm going to say we've all been late for work once or twice in our lives. But imagine somebody that's constantly late for work. So you might say, well, that's a behavioural level. You know, the late is a behaviour. And so they get told, like, you need to be at work on time, come to work on time. Okay, this is not okay. So they're like, okay. So for about a week or so, they manage to get to work on time, but then they're late again, just always late for work. This is not a behavior issue. This is not a behavioral level problem, because they have the capabilities. Okay, they know how to be on time because they've been on time. So they've got a strategy for being on time. But actually, what else is going on? Okay, but if you keep driving at the behavior there's not going to be any change, okay, because it's happening further up. So then you have to go further up. Okay, so maybe they really don't like their job, and they don't value the job. Maybe they don't see themselves. So this is identity. They don't really see themselves in that role, or it's kind of a misfit. It's not inspiring them, so they're not identifying well with it. Maybe they don't believe it. They haven't got enough self-belief that they can do it. Again, that's in the beliefs. So it's really about helping them there to figure out what's going on there. And then, of course, when somebody identifies with the work they're doing, they really feel that it's their role, it aligns with their mission, their purpose, they believe that they can, they're going to be there. They're going to do the stuff. They're going to take the action. We all do it. So that's the alignment. But, you know, think about it as a straight line. If there's a big squiggle here, you can't do what's down here. So this is why strategy falls short. It's also with environment why people will tidy their office and they'll make it beautiful and get all the plants and do all the pictures, and then still it's not really, it hasn't really worked. You know, trying all these things. Again, when people will have massive success and so their behaviors and their capabilities are such that they just drive and drive, they will be aligned with their mission. They will be aligned and they will be identifying with that. So this is how success is created. So when you've got a client who is struggling, this is the model to take them through. And like I said, there's a lot to each area, more than I can cover tonight. But it's really about having all these in alignment and realizing, am I a transactional coach? Am I working down here? Am I a transformational coach? Ideally, you want to be a mix of both and know when you can create that strategy for the client. Remember, we talked about the client culture. So all these things that I've gone through tonight are all aligned to understanding the culture of your client. Okay, so less about the tools and the models that we've got, and more about understanding the client first and really deepening these communication skills, and then deciding what tools, what's needed, what methods have I got, what have I got in my kit that's really going to help this, instead of just kind of like trying all the tools and just doing what we always do. And when you get really, really sophisticated at this, then it is just a game changer. The coaching becomes sublime. The results are easy to get. And so hopefully that helps to give you an insight into, you know, these really powerful models. So Wayne Dwyer said, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. And that is quite a head twister the first time you see it, but it is absolutely so, so true, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to have reflections now. A lot of information there. So hopefully you have made some notes and you've got some questions, or even some shares, what you think, maybe what's dropped in for you, maybe some gaps that you have noticed that you could fill in your coaching. So we will go to you now and see what you've got, Sonia and Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That was absolutely amazing, and an eye opener as well, especially the part about some of our questioning can become very repetitive.
Mm,
What I've taken from that is the client culture. It's
mm,
something that we don't really. Well, I think deep down, I think I know I should be looking out for that and might be
mm.
mindful of it. But thanks for that reminder, because it's something that is so key, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really easy to get pulled off with all the things we're doing and all the things we're learning. And actually, it's the most powerful NLP coaching is simple. The simplicity is
Yeah,
in the tools and then taking them and learning them deeply. Like I said, a lot of people think they're great rapport builders,
yeah,
but are they really? They might know about rapport, and it sounds like quite an easy word. Of course, we need a good rapport with our clients. Of course, we do. But when you can, like, literally supercharge your coaching is with those particular skills, and then you know the culture of the client. That's when you really
yeah,
start. You feel like you can almost read them. You feel like there's that synergy, and that is there. But again, still never assume what it means, because that's a
yeah.
big mistake too. So I'm really glad that you that highlighted that culture and our questions as well, how to have conversations that elicit information, because sometimes as coaches we can do too much talking,
Yeah.
too much talking. And I know certainly in my early coaching days, I was doing most of the talking. I know I was. And we're missing information when we're talking. So our job is to hold our state,
Yeah.
to hold a safe space, and to hold the presence, so that we can really, really, really notice because there is a lot to work on when you're an NLP coach. There's a lot. You're looking where someone's eyes are going. You're looking at their face. You're looking at you're looking at them. Are they nodding? Are they shaking? I don't know what's going on under the table when we're on Zoom. Sonia's leg could be going crazy with, like, she's like putting her front on because she's really feeling quite anxious. I don't know that, so I've got to sense that from somewhere else.
Yeah,
So especially on Zoom and like the half body coaching.
I know. I
Um,
had a client like that. I think it was at the beginning of January. She reached out to me on Facebook, and what I do as well. I've got 20 odd years in as a sales coach as well, so
mm,
I do that too. And I couldn't read her at all. We had about 3 or 4 sessions, and I thought this is not working. But she was insistent on turning up, every week, and I thought, we're not working together. It
right,
just, I just
right.
didn't align with her. I did everything to get something out from her. I did a lot of listening. She did all of the talking, but I just didn't. It didn't align at all, and I thought, just went downhill all
Well,
the
it
way.
doesn't feel good, does it, when it's
It
like
didn't feel
that?
right.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question, Sonia?
Mm.
Did you talk to her about it? Did you ask her how she felt it was going with you? Did you kind of go there?
I did. I did ask.
Mm.
I asked the question once, and she said, "Oh yeah, it's going really well." I thought it's not
Did
really.
you did you say I'm not so sure that it is?
I
Did you?
didn't know. I was
it,
like, "Ugh."
I think that's like really brave coaching. And if it ever happened again, I would really invite you to draw within you and say, I'm not so sure that I agree. And I
Yeah,
really want to understand what's happening for you or how you're feeling. Because for me, I'm feeling that it's not. Now, it's a miracle sometimes when you say things like that, because they're like, well, someone will then start to give some more information because you've been brave enough to go there. So as coaches, sometimes it's definitely our job to challenge, not in an aggressive way, but if we're not feeling that that's happening, that there was some resistance there based on tonight. That was about some kind of communication, not saying that you're a poor communicator by any stretch, but in that with that particular person who had a very, perhaps a very different map of the world to you, and the way that she's using her representational systems, her communication could have been like poles apart from you. So it could have been a very different kind of client. Doesn't mean you can't work with them. So it's really interesting to think about that, because she was still coming. So from her map of the world, she may have felt it's going right. So what I would have done, I would have explored possibly some different coaching experiences that she had, what she thought about coaching, coaches. I probably would have unpacked that a little to try and get that, because sometimes the direct questions, they don't get any answers, do they? So you ask a direct question and it's like,
experience. Sorry, that was her first experience. That was she's never had, you know, session. So I was the first coach she and unfortunately it just didn't work out.
So she might not know how to be in a coaching session, and she might not know what she can bring. Sometimes people are like on their best behavior, like, yes miss, no, yes coach, no coach.
A bit like
and
that.
And so it could just be, Sonia, that it could have worked, but she just didn't know how to show up in that space. So therefore it's for us to then guide and set the scope, right, really frame the coaching really well. I read something on Facebook the other day where somebody said, oh, they actually copied it out of their messenger. You know, when people do that and they like to show what's going on. And this person had said, the coach had asked, how do you want to talk to me, like as a coach or as a friend, like what are you, because they were sort of talking but it wasn't clear what was happening. And then this person said, oh, as a friend, I think, because I'd like to sort of speak freely. And the coach actually got rid of them and went into the, well, I'm a coach and I hold a professional space and I'm not here to offer friendship. And I was like, whoa, go back, please go back, because what all this poor person has said is there's a belief there that in a coaching space I can't talk freely. In a coaching space I don't know what that space is and I've got to show up a certain way, and in a friendship space I can say what I want. And actually a great coach would have reframed that for them, that in the coaching space it's the space you can speak the most freely ever. When can you think about those skills, the calibration, the rapport, putting that together, it's freedom in itself. And so a relationship was lost there, an opportunity was lost because ego came in my opinion. That's what I saw. And I thought, oh, I couldn't even be bothered to comment. You know what it's like, getting into this massive log thread that you never get out of. So yeah, I don't know if that helps, Sonia, from maybe a different perspective. And next time, and again, just thinking about that whole map of the world communication model, it's like, what's going on? How am I listing the information? What am I looking? Am I looking for facts and information, or am I actually listening for the values and the beliefs? And sometimes people won't say, oh, and I just thought that was really unfair. They won't say that unless it's a very strong situation. But when you're listening to them describe a challenge, sometimes they might just say, well, you know, just, I don't know. And in that physiology, they've told you it's not fair because they've gone balance. And so it's like an unsure, or it's just not fair. And so they might not always use the words, but you think that's interesting. You know, just, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. So it's like those scales. So people will really give you so much. It's like, how am I listening? What am I listening for? And great question to have asked your client, what's your intention? What's your intention? Yeah, let's just look at your intention again. Because people get really stuck in the detail of the conversation, and sometimes you need to go out and zoom out, as we say, to come back in. So maybe that just gives you a different few tools and bits that you might be able to use next time. Suzanne, did you have any reflections as you've listened to that very patiently? Thank you.
No, that's fine. Every day's a school day, so there's always an additional nugget, an additional slant on something that just gives it a slightly different perspective. So many thanks for this. This has been firstly a great revision, and secondly, I really liked, Sonia said the same about rather than working through the grow model and working on things like, you know, oh, let's work through your values, getting that framed in a different way, so asking the question in a different way, but eliciting the same information, and seeing also, you know, the physiology and how it changes when they talk about the, you know, especially the, you know, the highlights of their life, really see it. And that's to me is a big cue of what their passions are and what really sort of like sets them alight.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting, like, as well, you can tell so much from when you, I don't know if you remember, like, all the meta programs. And did you learn meta programs on Prac? You did. Okay, so it goes more as well into it in Master Prac, but it's like the meta programs when people do things like this, like you were just doing that a little bit. So it's like, that tells me you're quite an internal person. You know, you're quite internally referenced, like, you know, when you've done a good job, probably. You probably don't need someone to come along and say, well done, Suzanne, you know, that was really good. Kind of know what you're doing, because your language just there was just giving me a little bit of your programming that's internal, and kind of in. Some people are all out like this all the time, you know, out. And so there's so many things that can be noticed with a client. And I think, you know, what refreshed you the most, if I could ask you, what sort of made you go, oh yeah, because sometimes we forget these tools we have, you know?
It was a good, something that every now and again pops into my head, and I think, oh yes, that's so important. The changing your state with your physiology and vice versa. I can sometimes forget about that, but sometimes I tell my clients about, if they're feeling less than confident, it's about adopting the power pose. And you know, imagining they're a superhero, you know, the hands on the hips sort of stance, and the slow breathing and head held high for a moment. And I knew this was something good, but I'd forgotten exactly what the connection was. So that was really helpful. But one thing that was...
Can I just add something to that, Suzanne? Please remember your second point, because I really want to hear it. But that one there, again, we know about confident states, we know about like power pose and what it does to our physiology. And of course, if you've got a great rapport with a client, you can give them that, you can offer them that. But sometimes people are a bit resistant to that, and they don't want to. If you've got any resistance, they don't want to adopt a power pose, they're not in the mood for it or whatever. And so it's like, what you can do with that is, for instance, if someone's saying, oh, I just don't feel confident about it, or whatever the thing, you can ask them, oh, show me how you do not confident. What does your body do when you don't feel confident? And they might go, I tend to sort of curl in a little bit like that. Just maybe their head will go down. Ask them to do it, to do not confident, or to do sad, or to do stressed, or whatever it is that they give you. And then as they do that as well, do it with them. I mean, again, because what you're doing is you're not going into too much of a negative rapport state with them, but you're just staying with them. So you're like, oh, so when you don't feel confident, you kind of curl in like that, and they're like, yeah. So you're there kind of together. And then you can just invite them, just say, okay, well, if you just listen to your body, and you're like that and not feeling confident, and you think about that, you do want to feel confident, what does your body do that would shift that for you? What can you do that would shift that? And they will do it themselves. So then what happens is they'll go, oh, they'll tend to do something like that. And so they can go, there you go, you just literally did it yourself. How do you feel now? And they'll go, well, yeah, it feels better when. And so then what they've done is they've produced an anchor for themselves, really simply, a somatic anchor. And so it's like, well, there you go. So when you're feeling like that, you can do that, and you can just literally feel confident. That's the most simple way to anchor. Or you could say, let's do an anchoring process. You do the whole thing. But that way is super powerful. They've set it, they'll remember it. And the next time they go, oh, I don't feel confident, they'll go, hold on, I remember that. And they'll just, yeah. And I sometimes do this with, I did this with a man, because it's an easy thing to do. That's just like, how would you move to feel more confident? And he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. And it came back and said, every time I get into X situation, this is what I do. And it's really making a difference. But you see, the thing is, like, can we give them a tool? Can we offer them, like, do a power pose? Or in NLP, it's much stronger to invite them to find their own and then anchor that in, because they're not. And the reason being as well, Suzanne, is there's no resistance. There's no resistance to what they've decided is a good move. That's it.
Been internally driven and created.
Yeah. So it's all with their map of the world. And some of them, you know, we'll do all sorts of things. People do this one a lot. And so they've got an anchor for like if they're stressed or whatever. It's just like, oh, it's just a really calming area, and there's a lot going on around this collarbone area anyway. So like, great, so that's your anchor. And then you can get them to shake it off, and then you can get them to just go in there for a minute and then do that and see how they feel. And you've literally just done it, and you haven't had to make any suggestibles. But if you've got a strong rapport, you can, but it's just that it won't always be accepted. This is when people will say things like, oh, I forgot to do it. I forgot that you gave me 25 power poses. Yeah, I forgot about that, because they've deleted it. Remember the model again, they've deleted that information because somehow that wasn't important. It wasn't aligned somewhere with them. So you can get them to, so if anybody ever says, oh, I forgot to do that prompt, or you think, oh, okay, that's interesting. And so you can use your NLP tools to get them to choose an anchor and anchor it in, test it really simply, somatically, because the unconscious is delivering that movement, and nobody fights with their unconscious.
No,
not in that way anyway.
No.
Does that help? Is that useful?
It's very, yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Just makes things a bit easier as well, isn't it? So this is all about making coaching easier and a beautiful experience for our clients and for us. You know, there's nothing worse than coming out of a session feeling frazzled. You know, people are like, oh, I've been coaching all day. Like, what have you been doing that you're that exhausted? Actually, because the coaching should energize you. It can be draining sometimes because we're so present, but also with the state management in NLP, it's about how do you bring that presence, because you don't want to be like not suggesting you are, but do you know what I mean? Sometimes we get a bit fixed like that. So it's like, how can we be super present but also super relaxed so that we're just feeling that flow? Now that is like pretty hardcore coaching, really. So it comes back to all of these skills. So both of you have in NLP skills. Do you feel like now that gap's closed a little from the beginning when you said about they feel there? I mean, where do they feel now?
When I first logged on, it was like there. Now it's closer.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah, I'm so pleased to hear that. Do you have any other questions about NLP or anything that you think as sort of, I don't know, anything that might have got a bit confused along the way, or anything you're not sure about?
As well, Teresa, with regards to, like, do you do refresher courses for NLP certified coaches?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because as you've been talking, and I was thinking this is interesting. So both of you are NLP trained already, but maybe a while ago, maybe had
a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so it's almost like I thought in my mind, honestly, a refresher course for coaches who have NLP skills, but maybe they've stayed like that, or maybe they went like that and then they've gone like that. So yeah, I could actually look at doing something like that, because I think that would just be, it's just a like a refresher, but also just aligns them, because if people aren't using their NLP skills, it's just like, whoa, missing so much gold. And the clients are missing so much as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, absolutely, can talk about that. And you know, I'm all about creating what people need, not what I need. So obviously I want to run the NLP practitioner, but also I want to do advanced communication skills for coaches. So those are the two things that I'm looking at the moment. And I wonder whether, I mean, how does it sound to you if it was an advanced communication skills diploma for coaches, or does it sound like refreshing your skills and integrating them with your coaching to make it deep structure? That's a really long name for a program, but something like that.
Refreshing.
Yeah, because that word resonates, doesn't it? But so it's like it's taking your tools and again, different kinds of training that people have had. My training was very values led as well, so I go really deep on the values, really deep on these skills. Some NLP practitioner courses unbelievably don't, and they go deeper on other things. Some things are even left out because it's not regulated. So it'd be interesting to find out perhaps a little bit more about your individual trainings, and because meeting the gaps really. But I suppose a general refresher of the key the key elements of it. I mean, do you remember things like, do you do a lot of timeline work, parts integration, those kinds of processes?
I haven't done for a while, to be honest. It's kind of dribbled away, if I'm truthful.
Yeah. So it's perhaps some of those big power pieces that would be useful as well, because parts integration is just gorgeous. But if you don't use it a lot, you then go, oh, that feels like quite a big process to tackle. Where's my manual? I can't remember. I don't think I'll do it. So
also, did you say that you're also a mental health first aider? Do you have a course on that as well? Do you train?
No, I'm not a trainer for that. No, I'm an NLP trainer, but not a mental health first aider. But it was the first thing that I did.
Training for that, for mental health first aider.
I did it with a company because they're like they have people that are trained specifically for the MHFA England, and so the person I did was in person before COVID and everything in Northampton. But I don't think she does it anymore. But you can find trainers on the website. I did look up about their training trainers, but considering the massive amount of mental health requirements we have, and you'll know this, Suzanne, they weren't at that point training any new trainers.
I do believe, because I used to work for Mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I do believe Mind offer. It's not free, but I believe they offer something. I'm just trying to think. So I've got mine here. Who was it?
I mean, I feel that meant that the NLP really does offer.
Mental Health First Aid England.
Yeah, that's the book I've got.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mental Health First Aid England.
Yeah, that's the program that I've done as well. Yeah. So if you look on the website, if you Google that, you'll find the suppliers and trainers. I mean, like I said, NLP isn't a mental health solution technically, and I think it's really important people understand that. But it is, because when you think better and you feel better, I mean, these things can really change. But if someone's got an actual, diagnosed illness or depression, it's really not for that. And also things like we talk about in NLP really, and I'm going to have to say it, like normally organized thinking. So, in terms of ADHD, neurodiversity, I think there is an area that needs careful assessment around that, because I had someone come to me once who had ADHD, and we had a conversation, and I could tell how difficult it would be to negotiate that. And I was also thinking about some of the processes. And so actually that's not always, some of the parts are not always aligned. But what she loved was the reframes, anchoring, connection pieces. It's like, wow, she'd never heard that before. So again, understanding the map of the world is all it is. So someone could say, oh, I've got neurodiversity, or I'm ADHD. It's a label, it's an identity. Think about a triangle, that's how they identify, and it's something that's actually happening as well. So how do you coach somebody like that? Which NLP tools would you use and which wouldn't you? So it's about discernment always with NLP. So, in that particular instance, we didn't work together. And you've got to think about what your skills are as a coach as well. Then I do wonder about ADHD coaches working with ADHD. Is that confusing, or is that like, do they have the same maps of the world, and what's going on there? I think that whole area is really, really interesting. Really interesting. I do have a client who is, she always says, oh, I think, I might have ADHD, or I've got neurodiversity, and I can see the patterns, but then all I do is work with the patterns. I work with their map of the world, and it takes time to see those patterns, doesn't it? And to see those programs, because that's all they are, patterns and programs. And they're developed from where? Probably back on the timeline, quite a lot of trauma, quite a lot of backup to then manifest in this way. So again, there's quite a lot that can be done. But I just think the ecology and the ethics, it just comes back in there as well. And probably the levels of experience, where you are in your coaching or NLP career, because the more you do, the more you realise, I want to do that, or I'm definitely not doing that. You start to discern So it is about the culture of the client and making sure we're the right coaches for them in any way. But I can certainly look at a refresher course, and what within a refresher course would be most useful for you, because it's a curious thing between a refresher course and doing NLP prac again. do you know what I mean? So like for me as a trainer, I think, right, what's actually needed? What do you think that you would like to refresh on the most? Excuse me.
Ooh.
You know, deep diving into like anchoring, that's really, I find that aspect really quite interesting, and the culture.
Yes, yeah. So the communication model, the core skills.
Core skills. Deep dive into, you know, using those communication skills and
some of the juicy bits.
Yeah, and also going back to what I said about that other client, having that confidence to ask that question. That, you know, something's not going right. How can you open up a little bit more rather than let it go? Because I think I possibly may have missed an opportunity in that respect. So, but being a new coach, I'm learning.
Absolutely, of course you are. You know, never. You know, we only know what we know, and this is why we work with other coaches, mentors, and each other as peers to understand and get those different insights. And it does take confidence to do that. It really does. And so then it's a learning about you as well. I didn't go deep there. I could have done, but I didn't. What stopped me, and how can I build my courage as a coach? Because people will thank you for it, and whichever way it goes, it will pop out the information that you need. It really would. So that really was just a learning for you, a learning from her. When it ended, did it just kind of you got to the end of your time period, or did it what sort of happened? I was nosy, really. Sorry.
We did a couple of deep dive, you know, introductory sort of questioning sessions, getting to know her, what her needs were. Because she had a fear of selling. She's a graphic designer who needed to expand her business, and she didn't know how to nurture, you know, leads and get leads and, you know, source and just market really and sell herself.
Yeah.
So I helped her with that. So I was starting her off on a three-month program, and we only got through, I think, the first month.
Right. And so when you reflect on that and it hit the blocks, do you have any other insights now as to what might have been going on?
Having spoken to you guys, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And also thinking about the levels of change where she's looking at sales and marketing. And I know, because I get a lot of clients who want to change their sales process, and, you know, I'll teach them how to do it. And that's what I was first doing. I was thinking, why are they doing it? It's like back to the levels of change. It was because they didn't believe. They had lacked a lot of belief, and there was a lot of mindset stuff, and then not identifying with it. So the whole thing was misaligned, and they couldn't actually implement if they didn't have the confidence. There was so much going on there as well. So fear of selling is often not that. It's quite interesting. It's very interesting, in fact. So thank you, ladies. If there's anything else that's burning, Suzanne, were you about to say something?
No. I was just going to say, it's been lovely, but I need to go. So
yes, I also need to go. Yes, I didn't realise the time, but thank you so much. And I'll be in touch, and we'll speak soon. All right, take care. Thank you, ladies. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.